Your zucchini is making fruit, but those little squash keep turning yellow and dropping before you can harvest them. And if the plant looks healthy everywhere else, more water or more fertilizer may be exactly the wrong response. There are 3 common problems to check first, plus one normal pattern you don't want to mistake for a problem. And the fastest way to tell them apart is to look at exactly where that young fruit starts turning yellow. Start with the fruit itself. If the yellowing begins right at the blossom end, where the flower was attached, and the rest of the squash stays firm, poor pollination is one of the first things I check. Without successful pollination, the young fruit usually stops developing, then begins to yellow and eventually drops. Zucchini flowers only open for a single day. The female flower, the one with the tiny fruit already behind it, needs pollen delivered during that window for that young fruit to keep developing. Check early morning before the flowers close up for the day. If you're not seeing many bees working the bed, or you notice female flowers opening without much activity around them, you can do it yourself. Take a small paintbrush or even just a cotton swab. Dab it into the center of a freshly opened male flower, the ones on the long, thin stem with no fruit behind them, and transfer that pollen directly onto the center of a female flower. You can also just pick the male flower, strip the petals back, and press it straight into the female one if that's easier than fussing with a brush. It takes about a minute, and if poor pollination is the problem, those hand-pollinated flowers should have a much better chance of developing normally. There's a reason the bees might not be showing up in the first place. Early in the season, zucchini often produces a lot of male flowers before the plant settles into heavier production of female flowers, so there's plenty for pollinators to visit without ever reaching the fruit-bearing flowers. Cool mornings or a rainy stretch can also keep bees from working the bed at the hours those flowers are actually open. None of that means anything is wrong with your plant. It just means the job of moving pollen from one flower to the other didn't happen on its own that day. While you're hand-pollinating, you're simply doing the job the bees would normally handle. If pollinator activity picks back up as the season goes on, you may only need to do it for a short stretch. But what if the flower was pollinated? That's where the other 2 patterns become important, because heat stress and excessive nitrogen leave very different clues on the plant. Several young fruits turning yellow and dropping around the same time, especially after a run of unusually hot days, moves heat and moisture stress much higher on the list. A plant with noticeably more leaf than a few weeks ago, big and dark green, but noticeably fewer fruit than that leaf growth would suggest. Excess nitrogen may be part of the problem. Excess nitrogen is easy to miss because the plant can look fantastic, huge dark green leaves and plenty of growth. One clue is that the fruit production doesn't keep up with all that leaf. With heat stress, the plant isn't broken, it's under pressure. During a prolonged heat spell, high temperatures and increased water loss can put the plant under enough stress that young fruit fails to keep developing. That's when you may see several small squash yellowing and dropping within the same few days. Keep the root zone consistently watered rather than letting it swing between soaked and bone dry. And when the weather is hot, water deeply in the morning rather than relying on light surface watering during the day. A bit of temporary afternoon shade can take some pressure off the plant during the worst part of a heat wave. Even a piece of shade cloth leaned against a stake can help reduce stress on developing fruit. This isn't about babying the plant every day, just getting it through the roughest stretch. Mulch around the base helps with the moisture swings too. Once temperatures ease back down, the plant may start holding on to new fruit again over the next flowering cycle, especially if moisture at the roots has stayed consistent. One hot afternoon doesn't automatically mean heat stress is the cause. The pattern becomes much more convincing when several hot days are stacked together, especially if the plant is also drying out between waterings. It's worth actually checking whether the soil is still moist below the dry surface before assuming heat is to blame. Push a finger past the crust near the base of the plant. A plant that's been watered consistently through a heat wave handles the stress very differently than one that was already running dry going into it. If you've only had one hot spell so far and you're already seeing widespread yellowing, it's worth checking pollination and nitrogen again before settling on heat as the cause. If excessive nitrogen is the problem, the fix is usually to back off rather than add another product. Skip the next round of any high nitrogen feed, the kind meant for leafy growth, and let the plant settle for a couple of weeks. If the soil actually needs fertilizer beyond that, a simple home soil test kit or your local extension office can tell you what it actually needs, rather than guessing from the color of the leaves. For now, skip the extra liquid feeds and all-purpose boosters too. If the plant is already getting more nitrogen than it needs, adding another feed won't help you diagnose the problem. While you wait, watch the new growth rather than the color of the old leaves. If excessive nitrogen was contributing to the problem, you should gradually see less runaway leaf growth, while fruit production starts to catch up with all that foliage.
There's one more pattern you don't want to mistake for a problem. Zucchini can produce more flowers and young fruit than it ultimately carries to harvest, especially when the plant is under changing weather or other stress. A few yellowing, unfinished fruit scattered here and there can happen even on a healthy, productive plant. If the plant is otherwise setting and filling plenty of squash, an occasional aborted fruit by itself isn't necessarily a problem. That's different from the pollination or nitrogen pictures, where the pattern shows up consistently across most of the fruit the plant sets, week after week, rather than as an occasional one here and there. With nitrogen specifically, that same consistency shows up alongside the leaf canopy itself, getting visibly bigger over the same stretch, not staying steady while the odd fruit here and there fails.
Whichever pattern turns out to be yours, here's what to watch for once you've made the change. New female flowers that go on to hold past that soft, yellow-tipped stage for more than a couple of days are your earliest sign it's working, well before the fruit is anywhere near full size. Whatever the cause, there's one thing to remember. A zucchini plant can be dropping some fruit and still be perfectly fine overall. It's not a sign every flower failed you or that the plant is dying. Once you've matched the pattern to the most likely cause, make that change first and give the plant several days to respond before adding anything else. A fruit that's already past the point of turning yellow isn't coming back, but the next round behind it will show you whether the fix actually worked. It's also fine for more than one of these to be going on at once. A stretch of hot weather can suppress bee activity. At the same time, it's stressing the plant directly. So a run of yellow, dropped fruit right after a heat wave can be both causes overlapping rather than one clean answer. The same overlap can happen with heat and excess nitrogen. A plant can have too much leafy growth and still struggle when a heat wave adds another layer of stress. If you hand-pollinate for several days and the fruit still drops after the heat breaks, that makes poor pollination less likely, and heat stress deserves another look. Either way, don't change 3 things at once. Give each adjustment time to show you whether it helped. Which one turned out to be yours? Drop it in the comments. It helps other people scrolling through with the same problem figure out their own case faster. Knowing which of those 3 problems you're dealing with also saves you from trying a fix meant for a different cause and wondering why nothing changed. If this helped you figure out what's happening, give the video a like and subscribe for more practical garden troubleshooting. And if you know someone whose zucchini keeps dropping tiny fruit, share this video with them. It may save them from fixing a problem they don't actually have.